Leo, this week carries the energy of completion, but not the kind that asks you to rush toward the next applause. The world is your card, and its message is more mature than you made it. It asks whether you are willing to recognize what has actually ended, integrate what it taught you, and let completion be complete. The cosmic weather for this reading is deliberately clear of invented detail. No verified astrological events or house map transits were supplied for this week, so I will not create timing claims around the sky. Your tarot card stands at the center by itself. The world becomes the frame for August 26th through September 1st. Your card is the world. This is the final card of the major arcana, associated with completion, integration, wholeness, achievement, and the closing of a cycle. But completion is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a task finally finished. Sometimes it looks like understanding why a relationship could not become what you hoped. Sometimes it looks like realizing you no longer need to prove the lesson because you have already lived it. For Leo, there is a special challenge here. You are capable of celebrating milestones, but you can also stay emotionally attached to the stage after the performance is over. The world asks you to leave the stage with grace. Your central thesis is, completion deserves ceremony, not clinging. In love, the world asks what has reached maturity. If you are partnered, there may be something you and your partner have moved through that deserves acknowledgement. Perhaps a difficult period, a practical goal, a shift in how you communicate, or simply a deeper understanding of one another. Do not skip over the progress because there is always another issue to solve. Naming what has been completed creates emotional stability. At the same time, a completed cycle can reveal that a relationship needs a new form. Completion does not automatically mean ending the relationship. It can mean ending the old rules within it. A dynamic where one person always pursues, rescues, apologizes, or carries the emotional labor may have reached its limit. The world invites a more mature pattern. If you are single, look at the romantic story you keep retelling about yourself. Are you still identifying with a rejection, a past relationship, or a period of loneliness that no longer accurately describes your life? You may be carrying an expired identity simply because it once explained you. Let the story update. In work, the world is excellent for finishing, delivering, consolidating, and recognizing mastery. This is not necessarily the week to add 5 new ambitions before closing the current loops. Complete the presentation. Send the final version. Archive the old files. Document what you learned. If a project has ended, give yourself an honest review before moving on. What worked because of skill? What worked because of luck? What would you repeat? What would you refuse to repeat? There may also be a question of visibility. Leo often understands that work deserves to be seen. The world supports sharing a completed result, but it asks you to distinguish celebration from dependence on validation. Recognition is meaningful, but it is not the only proof that something mattered. With money, this card favors closing loops. Pay attention to subscriptions, balances, reimbursements, unfinished financial paperwork, or goals that have quietly reached a milestone. If you completed a savings target or reduced an obligation, acknowledge it before immediately moving the goalpost. If a financial system no longer fits your current life, this is a good week to simplify it. For health and energy, the world asks you to think in cycles. Your body is not a machine that should remain in one mode forever. Effort needs recovery. Social activity needs solitude. Stimulation needs quiet. Notice which cycle you keep refusing to close. Are you working after the workday has effectively ended? Are you mentally replaying conversations that are finished? Are you carrying fatigue from one day into the next because you never create a ritual of stopping? Completion is physiological as well as psychological. For your week day by day, use each day as a closing and integrating practice rather than a forecast. On Wednesday, identify one thing that is genuinely complete. It can be a project, a decision, a chapter, or a lesson. Write down what makes it complete instead of reopening it automatically. On Thursday, finish one practical loose end connected to that cycle. Send the final message, file the document, return the item, cancel the subscription, or clean the physical space associated with it. On Friday, name what you learned. The world is integration, and integration requires language. Choose 3 lessons you want to carry forward without carrying the entire old story with them. On Saturday, celebrate something without minimizing it. You do not need an audience. Make a good meal, take yourself somewhere meaningful, play music, tell someone you trust, or simply stop and feel the difference between before and after. On Sunday, notice whether you are tempted to reopen a completed issue because the emptiness after completion feels unfamiliar. Space is not failure. Space is what completion creates. On Monday, consider what the next cycle would require, but do not force a full plan. Ask what you want to do differently because of what you now know. Let the future emerge from integration rather than impatience. On Tuesday, close the week with an inventory of open loops. Choose only one to carry consciously into the next week. The rest should either be scheduled, delegated, completed, or intentionally released. Your 3 journal prompts are these. First prompt: what in my life is already complete, even though part of me keeps treating it as unfinished? Second prompt: which lesson from a past cycle deserves to come forward without bringing the old identity with it? Third prompt: how would I celebrate progress if I did not need anyone else to confirm that it counted? For your weekly guidance, create a completion ceremony with 3 objects. Choose one object that represents what ended, one that represents what you learned, and one that represents what you are carrying forward. They can be ordinary things: a key, a note, a stone, a photo, a piece of paper, anything that has meaning for you. Sit with the 3 objects for 10 minutes. Speak one sentence for each. This is what is complete. This is what I learned. This is what I keep. Then remove or put away the first object, keep the second somewhere private, and place the third where you can see it this week. The point is to give your nervous system a physical signal that a chapter has changed. The world also asks you to reconsider perfection. Completion does not mean that every detail became ideal. A project can be complete with imperfections. A relationship lesson can be complete even if you never receive the apology you wanted. A season can end without giving you every answer. Wholeness is not the same as flawlessness. Wholeness means the experience has found its place in the larger story. Leo, there is dignity in knowing when to stop performing a chapter that has already given you its final line. You do not lose importance by leaving the stage. You make room for a new act. And the applause that matters most this week may be the quiet internal recognition that you followed something all the way through. There is another form of completion that Leo sometimes overlooks, being finished with the need to receive a different ending. You may never get the explanation, recognition, apology, or perfect final scene that would make a chapter feel elegant. The world says closure can still belong to you. You can decide that the lesson has been gathered, the boundary has been learned, and the remaining ambiguity no longer deserves daily attention. A cycle can be complete because you are complete with carrying it. Do not rush to fill the space that completion creates. Empty space can feel strange because there is no immediate role to perform inside it, but that is exactly why it matters. Let yourself experience the pause between cycles. The next meaningful beginning will be stronger if it is chosen from spaciousness rather than used to avoid the silence after an ending. Your weekly affirmation is, I honor what is complete, keep the wisdom, and make space for what can begin from wholeness. Carry that with you through September 1st. Subscribe so your next weekly reading is waiting for you. Trust the timing. The stars have spoken.